The 13th Tablet. Synopsis of the 13th Tablet. Royal cities sprout with sacred precincts for the gods. Demigods serve as kings and priests in palaces and temples. Marduk promises his royal followers an eternal afterlife. In Sumer, Inanna encourages belief in resurrection, celestial omens, and foretelling oracles gain followings. Marduk proclaims the coming age of the ram as his sign. Ningishida builds stone observatories to show otherwise. Insurrections, wars, and invasions destabilize light lands. The mystery emissary appears to Enlil, foretells a calamity. Instructs Enlil to select a worthy man to lead survival. Enlil chooses Ibrum, scion of priestly royal family armies raised by Nabu, attempt to seize the spaceport, overruling Enki. The gods resort to weapons of terror. Ninurta and Nergal obliterate the spaceport and sinning cities. The drifting nuclear cloud brings death to all in Sumer, god of the mounts and the chosen man. In the third region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom. What to Inanna was entrusted she neglected, other domains not to her. Granted in her heart she coveted, when from Anunnaki at the count of 1,000 years kingship away was taken. Who the calamity by the end of the next millennium could foresee, who the disaster would have prevented, that in less than a third of one shar a calamity unknown would befall, who could foretell? By Inanna was the bitter end started, Marduk as Ra with destiny tangled, Ninurta and Nergal the unspeakable end with their own hands delivered. Why was Inanna with her granted domain not satisfied? Why to Marduk did? Unforgiving she remained, journeying between Anunnaki and Arata. Inanna restless and ungratified was. For her beloved Dumuzi she still mourned, her love's desire unquenched remained. When she flew about in the sun rays, Dumuzi's image she saw shimmering and beckoning. In the night time in dream visions he appeared. I will return, he was saying. The glories of his domain in the land of the two narrows to her he was promising. In the sacred precinct of Anunnaki, a house for nighttime pleasure she established to this Jigunu young heroes. On the night of their weddings with sweet words she lured, long life, a blissful future to them she promised, that her lover Dumuzi was, she imagined. Each one in the morning in her bed was found dead. It was at that time that the hero Banda, left for dead, alive to Anunnaki, returned. By the grace of Utu, of whose seed he was, did Banda from the dead return. A miracle! A miracle! Excited Inanna shouted. My beloved Dumuzi to me came back. In her abode Banda was bathed. With a sash a fringed cloak on him was fastened. Dumuzi, my beloved, she called him. To her bed with flowers bedecked she lured him. When in the morning Banda was alive, with joy Inanna shouted, the power of not dying in my hands was placed, immortality by me is granted. Then to call herself a goddess Inanna decided, the power of immortality it implied. Nanar and Ningal, Inanna's parents, by her proclamation were not pleased. Enlil and Ninurta by Inanna's words were disconcerted. Utu, her brother, was bemused. The dead to revive is not possible, Enki and Ninharsak to each other said. In the lands of Kiengi, the people their good fortune praised. The gods are among us, death they can abolish. So to each other the people said. On the throne of Anunnaki Banda, his father Enmakar succeeded Lugal great man. His title was. The goddess Ninsun of Enlil's seed took him to be her spouse. The hero Gilgamesh, their son, on the throne of Anunnaki Lugal Banda, followed. As the years passed and Gilgamesh older grew, of life and death to his mother Ninsun he spoke about the death of his forebears. Though of Anunnaki descended, he wondered, do gods die? His mother he asked. Shall I too, though 2/3 divine as a mortal, over the wall climb? So to her he said, As long as on earth you abide the death of an earthling will you overwhelm. Ninsun to her son said, but if to Nibiru you will be taken, long life thereon you will attain. To take Gilgamesh aloft to Nibiru journey, Ninsun to Utu the commander. Appealed. Endlessly Ninsun to Utu appealed, day after day with him she pleaded, let Gilgamesh to the landing place go. Utu in the end agreed. To guide and protect him, Ninharsag a double of Gilgamesh fashioned. Enkidu, as by Enki created was he called, of a womb he was not born, blood in his veins was not. With the comrade Enkidu Gilgamesh to the landing place journeyed Utu. With oracles his progress oversaw at the entrance to the cedar forest, its fire-belching monster their way, blocked. With trickery they the monster confused, to pieces it they broke. When the secret entrance to the tunnels of the Anunnaki they found, by the bull of heaven, a creature of Enlil, with deathly snorts they were challenged. To the gates of Anunnaki the monster them chased, at the city's ramparts by. Enkidu it was smitten, when Enlil this heard, with agony he cried, in the heavens of Anu was his wailing heard, for in his heart Enlil well knew, bad indeed was the omen, for having the bull of heaven slain, to perish in waters Enkidu was punished, Gilgamesh, having by Ninsun and Utu been instructed of the slaying was absolved. Still the long life of Nibiru seeking Gilgamesh to proceed to the place of the chariots by Utu was permitted. After many adventures the land of Tilmun, the fourth region, he reached. Through its subterranean tunnels he proceeded in a garden of precious stones. Ziusudra he met. The events of the deluge Ziusudra to Gilgamesh related, the secret of long. Living to Gilgamesh he revealed, a plant in the garden's well was growing Ziusudra and his spouse from. Getting old it prevented. Unique of all the plants on earth it was, by it a man full vigor can regain. Man at old age is young again, this is the plant's name, Ziusudra too. Gilgamesh said, a gift of Enki with Enlil's blessing on the mount of salvation to us was granted. When Ziusudra and his spouse were asleep, Gilgamesh to his feet stones tied. Into the well he dived. The plant of being young again he grasped and uprooted. With the plant in his satchel through the tunnels he hurried. To Anunnaki he made his way. When he tired and was asleep, a snake by the plant's fragrance was attracted. The plant did the snake snatch from the sleeping Gilgamesh. With the plant it vanished. In the morning, his loss discovering, Gilgamesh sat and wept. To Anunnaki empty-handed he returned, as a mortal therein he died. 7 more kings in Anunnaki after Gilgamesh reigned, then its kingship to an end came. Precisely when the count of 1,000 earth years was completed, it was to Urim, the city of Nanar and Ningal, was kingship of the first region. Transferred. To all these matters that in the other regions were occurring, Marduk much heed gave, by Inanna's dreams and visions, to Dumuzi's domain alluding, Ra was disturbed. To counteract Inanna's schemes of expansions he was determined. In the matters of resurrection and immortality, he found much to ponder. The thought of divine godship to him greatly appealed. To be a great god himself he announced. By what to Gilgamesh, in good measure an earthling, was permitted, Ra was, angered but a clever way, wherewith the loyalty of kings and people to retain he deemed it. If demigods the gateway to immortality are shown, let this to the kings of my region apply. So did Marduk in the second region by the name Ra known to himself. Words say, let the kings of my region of Neteru offspring be to Nibiru in an afterlife. Journey, so did Ra in his realm decree, the kings how to build tombs facing eastward. He taught to the prescribes a long book he dictated, the afterlife journey in detail in. It was described how to reach the Duat, the place of the celestial boats. In the book was told how to there by a stairway to heaven to the imperishable planet journey of the plan of life partake, The waters of youth to satiation drink. Of the coming of the gods to earth by Ra, where the priest taught, gold is the splendor of life. To them he said, the flesh of the gods it is. To the kings Ra said, to make expeditions to the Abzu in the lower domain, gold to obtain. The kings he instructed. When by the force of weapons the kings of Ra lands not theirs conquer, his brothers' realms he invaded. Their ire he caused to arise and grow. What is Marduk up to? The brothers each other asked. That over us he tramples? To their father Enki they appealed. To Ptah his father Ra did not listen. To capture all adjoining lands the kings of Magan and Meluha Ra directed. To be the master of the 4 regions was his heart's plan. The earth is mine to rule, so adamantly to his father he said. Now this is the account of how Marduk Supreme himself declared and Babili built, and how Inanna, warrior kings commanding, blood made flow in sacrileges, allowed. After kingship to Urim from Anunnaki was transferred, Nanar and Ningalong, the people smiled, as his rank of 30 befitting, as the god of the moon Nanar was, worship as the count of the moon months in a year, 12 festivals each year he decreed. To each of the 12 great Anunnaki a month and its festival were dedicated. Throughout the first region to the Anunnaki gods, great and lesser ones, shrines and sanctuaries were built. The people to their gods could directly pray. In the first region, civilization from Kiengi to other neighboring lands spread in cities of man-local rulers as righteous shepherds were designated, artisans and farmers, shepherds and weavers their products far and wide exchanged. Laws of justice were decreed, contracts of trade, of espousal and divorce were honored. In schools the young ones studied, scribes hymns and proverbs and wisdom recorded. Abundance and happiness were in the lands, quarrels and encroachments there also were. All the while Inanna and her skyship from land to land roamed near the upper sea. With Utu she frolicked. To the domain of her uncle Ishkur she went. Dudu, beloved, she called him. To the people who in the upper plain of the 2 rivers dwelt, Inanna took a liking. The sound of their tongue she found pleasant. To speak their language she learned. By the name of the planet Lahamu in their tongue, Ishtar they called her. Uruk, her city Unuki, they called. Dudu as Adad in their language they pronounced. Sin, lord of oracles, her father Nana they named. Urim city by them was called. Shamash, bright sun, in their tongue Utu they called. Him too they worshipped. Enlil by them father Elu was called. Nipu by them was Nibuki Kiengi, land of the lofty watchers. Shuma in their language was named. In Shuma, the first region, kingship between the cities was rotated. In the second region, diversity by Ra was not permitted. Alone to reign he wished. The eldest of heaven, firstborn who is on earth, thus by the priest to be known he wanted, the foremost from the earliest times. So he decreed in the hymns to be called Lord of eternity, he who everlastingness has made over all the gods. Presiding, the one who is without equal, the great solitary and sole one. So did Marduk as Ra, above all other gods himself in place, their powers and attributes to himself he by himself assigned. As Enlil, I am for lordship and decrees, as Ninurta for the hoe and combat, as Adad for lightning and thunder, as Nana for illuminating the night, as Utu I am Shamash, as Nergal over the lower world I reign, as Jibal the golden depths I know, whence copper and silver come I have found, as Ningishita numbers and their count I command, the heavens my glory. Best speak! By these proclamations the Anunnaki leaders were greatly alarmed. To their father Enki, the brothers of Marduk spoke, Nergal to Ninurta there. Concerns conveyed, what has you overpowered? Enki to his son Marduk said, unheard of are your pretensions. The heavens my supremacy bespeak. Marduk his father Enki answered, the bull of heaven, Enlil's constellation sign, by his own offspring was slain. In the heavens the age of the Ram, my age is coming, unmistakable the omens are. In his abode in Eridu, the circle of the 12 constellations Enki examined on the first day of spring, the beginning of a year, sunrise was carefully observed. In the constellation stars of the bull was the sun that day rising. In Nibruki and Urim Enlil and Nanar, the observations made in the lower world where the instrument station had been, Nergal, the results attested. Still remote was the time of the Ram, the age of the bull of Enlil it still was. In his domains, Marduk in his assertions did not relent. By Nabu he was, assisted to domains, not his emissaries he sent, to the people that his time has come to. Announce to Ningishida the Anunnaki leaders appeal, how to the people the skies, to observe to teach. In his wisdom stone structures Ningishida devised, Ninurta and Ishkur too, erect them helped. In the settled lands near and far, the people how the skies to observe they taught that the sun in the constellation of the bull was still rising to the people they showed. With sorrow did Enki these ongoings watch, how fate the rightful order twisted he pondered after the Anunnaki as gods themselves declared. On mankind support they instead are dependent. In the first region to unify the lands under one leader, the Anunnaki decided. A warrior king they desired. To Inanna of Marduk the adversary, the task of the right man to find they entrusted. A strong man, whom on her journey she had met and loved, Inanna to Enlil. Indicated Arbakat of 4 garrisons the commander was his father, a high priestess his. Mother was, scepter and crown, Enlil him gave, Sharukin, righteous regent, Enlil him, appointed. As on Nibiru once was done, a new crowned city, the lands to unify was. Established Agade, the unified city, they named it, not far from Kishi it was located. By Enlil was Sharukin empowered, Inanna with her weapons of brilliance, his warriors accompanied, all the lands from the lower sea to the upper sea to his throne obedience, gave at the borders of the 4th region to protect it. His troops were stationed with a cautious eye. Ra on Inanna and Sharukin constantly gazed. Then as a falcon on his prey he pounced from the place where Marduk the tower to heaven reaching to build had attempted. Sacred soil from there to Agadi did Sharukin move, therein the heavenly bright object to implant. Enraged did Marduk to the first region rush. With Nabu and followers to the tower's place they came. Of the sacred soil I alone the possessor am. By me shall a gateway of the gods be established. So did Marduk vehemently announce instructions the river to divert to his followers he gave. Dikes and walls in the place of the tower they raised, the Esagil house for the utmost god, for Marduk they built. Babili, the gateway of the gods, Nabu in his father's honor named it. In the heart of the Eden, in the midst of the first region, Marduk himself established. Inanna's fury no boundary knew. With her weapons on Marduk's followers, death she inflicted. The blood of people as never before on earth, like rivers flowed. To his brother Marduk Nergal to Babili came, for the sake of the people. Babili to leave him he persuaded. Let us peacefully wait for the true signs of heaven. Nergal to his brother said. To depart Marduk agreed. From land to land the skies to watch he traveled. Amun, the unseen one, in the 2nd region, was Ra henceforth called. For a while was Inanna appeased. 2 sons of Sharukin his peaceful successors were. Then on the throne of Agade Sharukin's grandson ascended Naram Sin Bai. Sin loved he was called. In the first region Enlil and Ninurta absent were to the lands beyond thee. Oceans they went. In the 2nd region Ra was away, as Marduk in other lands he traveled. Her chance in her hands to seize all powers, Inanna envisioned Naram Sin to seize all lands she commanded, to march against Magan and Meluha, Marduk domains, Naram Sin she instructed the sacrilege of an earthling's army through the fourth region passing. Naram Sin committed, Magan he invaded, the sealed Ekor house which like a mountain is to enter he attempted by the sacrileges and transgressions, and Enlil was infuriated upon Naram Sin, and a god a curse he put. By a bite of a scorpion did Naram Sin die. By the command of Enlil was Agade wiped out. At the count of 1,500 earth years did this happen. Now this is the account of the prophecy by Galzu to Enlil in a vision given about Marduk's supremacy. It was how a calamity to survive a man to choose. After Marduk Amun became kingship in the second region disintegrated. Disorder and confusion reigned after Agada was wiped out. In the first region there was disorder, confusion reigned. In the first region kingship was in disarray, from cities of gods to cities of man it moved about. Anunnaki, Lagash, Urim and Kish, Isin, and to faraway places kingship was shifting. Then Enlil with Anu consulting, kingship in the hands of Nanar deposited to Urim, in whose soil the divine heavenly bright object remained. Implanted kingship for the third time was granted. In Urim a righteous shepherd of men, Nanar, as king appointed, or Namu was his name. Equity in the lands, or Namu established to violence and strife an end he made in all the lands. Prosperity was abundant. It was at that time that in the nighttime Enlil a dream vision had. The image of a man to him appeared, bright and shining like the heavens he was. As he approached and by Enlil's bed stood, Enlil the white-haired Galzu recognized in his left hand a tablet of lapis lazuli he was holding. The starry heavens on it were designed by the 12 constellation signs, were the heavens divided to them with his left hand. Galzu pointed from the bull to the Ram Galzu. His pointing shifted 3 times the pointing. He repeated. Then in the dream vision Galzu spoke up and to Enlil thus said, the righteous time of benevolence and peace by evil doing and bloodshed will be followed. In 3 celestial portions the ram of Marduk, the bull of Enlil, will replace. One who himself as supreme God has declared supremacy on earth will seize a calamity as has never before occurred, by fate decreed, will happen. As at the time of the deluge, a righteous and worthy man must be chosen. By him and his seed will civilize mankind, as by the Creator of all intended be preserved. So did Galzu, the divine emissary, to Enlil in the dream vision say. When Enlil from the nighttime dream vision awakened, there was no tablet beside his bed. Was it an oracle from heaven, or did I it all in my heart imagine? Enlil too himself wondered. To none of his sons, Nanar among them, nor to Enlil did he of the dream vision tell. Among the priests in the Nibruki temple, Enlil of celestial savants inquired. Tirhu, an oracle priest, to him the high priest indicated. Of Ibru, of Arbakad the grandson, he was descended 6th generation of Nibruki priests he was. With the royal daughters of Urim's kings they were intermarried. Get yourself to Nanar's temple in Urim, the heavens for celestial time. Observe 72 earth years is the count of a celestial portion, the passage of 3 thereof carefully record. So did Enlil to Tirhu the priest say. The prophesied time he made him count. While Enlil the dream vision and its portents pondered, Marduk from land to land went. Of his supremacy the people he was telling to followers gain was his purpose. In the lands of the upper sea and the lands on Kiengi bordering, Nabu, Marduk's son, was the people inciting to seize the 4th region was. His plan between the dwellers of the west and the dwellers of the east clashes were occurring. King's hosts of warriors formed, caravans ceased going, the walls of cities were raised. What Galzu had foretold indeed is happening. Enlil to himself said, upon Tirhu and his sons of worthy lineage descended. Enlil set his gaze This is the man to choose, by Galzu indicated. Enlil to himself said. To Nanar, without the dream vision revealing, Enlil to his son thus said, in the land between the rivers whence Arbakad had come, a city like Urim. Establish a home abode away from Urim, let it for you and Ningo be. In its midst a temple shrine establish, the priest Prince Tirhu in charge. Thereof appoint, by his father's word abiding, Nanar in the land of Arbakad, the city of Haran established, to be high priest in its temple shrine. Tirhu he sent his family with him, when 2 celestial portions out of the prophesied 3 were completed did. Tirhu to Haran go. At that time Ur-Nammu, the joy of Urim, in the western lands from his chariot fell and died. On the throne of Urim his son Shulgi him succeeded, full of vile and eager. For battles Shulgi was. In Nibruki himself high priest he anointed. In Anunnaki the joys of Inanas. Volva he sought, warriors from the mountain lands, to Nana not beholden. In his army he enlisted, with their help the western lands he overran. The sanctity of mission control. Center he ignored. In the sacred 4th region his foot he set. King of the 4 regions himself, he declared. About the defilements Enlil was angered, about the invadings Enki to Enlil. Spoke, the rulers of your region all bounds have exceeded. Enki to Enlil bitterly said, of all the troubles Marduk is the fountainhead. Enlil to Enki retorted, still the dream vision to himself keeping. Enlil to Tirhu his attention turned. Upon Ibruam, the eldest son of Tirhu, Enlil cast a choosing gaze. A princely offspring, valiant and with priestly secrets acquainted Ibrum was, to protect the sacred places, the chariots' ascents and descents enable Enlil, Ibrum to go commanded. No sooner did Ibrum from Haran depart, than in that city Marduk arrived. The defilements he too had observed, as birth pangs of a new order he them deemed. From Haran, on the threshold of Shumer, his final thrust he planned. From Haran, at the edge of Ishgor's domains situated, the raising of armies. He directed. When 24 earth years of his sojourn in Haran had passed, Marduk to the other gods of whomever descended tearfully an appeal made, confessing his transgressions but insisting on his lordship. To them he thus said, O gods of Haran, O great gods who judge, learn my secrets. As I girdle my belt, my memories I remember. I am the divine Marduk, a great god in my domains as Ra, my known. For my sins to exile I went, to the mountains have I gone, and many lands I wandered. From where the sun rises to where the sun sets I went, to the land of Ishkur Afkane. 24 years in the midst of Haran I nested, an omen in its temple I sought. Until when? About my lordship, an omen in the temple I asked. Your days of exile are completed. To me the oracle in the temple said, O great gods who the fates determine, let me to my city set my course. My temple Esagil as an everlasting abode establish, a king in Babylon stall. In my temple house let all the Anunnaki gods assemble, my covenant accept. So did Marduk, confessing and appealing to the other gods his coming, announce. By his appeal for their submission, the Anunnaki gods were disturbed and alarmed. To a great assembly, counsel to take, and Lil them all summoned. All the Anunnaki leaders in Nibuki gathered. Enki and Marduk's brothers also came. About the happenings, all of them were agitated, opposed to Marduk, and Nabu they all were. In the council of the great gods, accusations were rampant, recriminations filled the chamber. What is coming no one can prevent, let us Marduk's supremacy accept. Enki alone counseled, if the time of the ram is coming, let us Marduk of the bond heaven earth deprive, Enlil in anger proposed, to obliterate the place of the celestial chariots. All except Enki agreed, to use therefore the weapons of terror Nergal suggested. Only Enki was opposed of the decision. Earth to Anu the words pronounced, Anu to earth the words repeated. What was destined to be by your decision to undo will fail. So did Enki say, as he departed. The evil thing to carry out Ninurta and Nergal were selected. Now this is the account of how fate to destiny did lead, how step by step, some in long forgotten times taken the great calamity, made happen. Now let it for all time be recorded and remembered when the decision to use the weapons of terror was made to himself and Lil. 2 secrets kept to no one before the terrible decision was taken did Enlil the secret of. Galzu's dream vision revealed to no one until the fateful decision was made did Enlil his knowledge of the terror's hiding place disclose, when despite all protestations the council to use the weapons of terror permitted. When Enki, angry and distraught, the council chamber left, in his heart was Enki smiling, only he knew where the weapons were. Hidden! So did Enki think, for it was he, before Enlil to earth had come, who with Abgal in a place unknown the weapons did hide. That Abgal to the exiled Enlil the place disclosed, that to Enki was unknown. When Enki this second secret heard, in his heart a wishful thought he harbored, that after such a long sojourn the weapon's terror would have evaporated. Little did Enki expect the long sojourn a calamity as never before known on earth to cause. Thus it was that without Enki needing Enlil to the 2 heroes the hiding place disclosed, those 7 weapons of terror in a mountain they abide. To them Enlil said, in a cavity inside the earth they dwell, with the terror to clad them is required. Then the secret of how the weapons from their deep sleep awaken Enlil to them did reveal. Before the 2 sons, one of Enlil, one of Enki, to the hiding place departed, Enlil to them words of forewarning said, ere the weapons are used by the Anunnaki must the chariot's place be vacated, the cities must be spared, the people must not perish. In his skyship Nergal to the hiding place soared, Ninurta by his father was delayed, a word to his son alone, and Lil wished to say, a secret to him alone reveal, about the prophecy of Galzu and the choosing of Ibrum to Ninurta he told. Hot-headed is Nergal, make sure that the cities are spared, that Ibrum is forewarned to Ninurta, and Lil said. When Ninurta at the weapons place arrived, Nergal from the cavity had already them brought out, as their mees from the long slumber he awakened. To each one of the 7, Nergal a task name gave, the one without rival the first weapon he called, the blazing flame he named the second, the one who with terror crumbles he called the third, mountain melter the 4th he called, wind that the rim of the world seeks he named the 5th, the one who above and below no one spares was the 6th, the 7th with monstrous venom was filled, vaporizer of living things he called it, with Anu's blessing were the 7 to Nergal Ninurta given, therewith too destruction wreak. When Ninurta at the place of the weapons of terror arrived, to destroy and annihilate was Nergal ready. I shall kill the son, I will annihilate the father. Nergal with vengeance was shouting, the lands they covet will vanish, the sinning cities I will upheaval. So did Nergal enraged announce, valiant Nergal, will you the righteous with the unrighteous destroy? So did Ninurta his comrade ask, the instructions of Enlil are clear, to the selected targets the way I will lead, you behind me will follow, the decision of the Anunnaki to me is known. Nergal to Ninurta said, for 7 days and 7 nights the signal from Enlil the 2 awaited. As was his intention, when his waiting was completed, Marduk to Babili returned in the presence of his followers with weapons armed. His supremacy he declared 1,736 was the count of earth years. Then, on that day, on that fateful day, Enlil to Ninurta the signal sent. To Mount Mashu Ninurta departed, behind him Nergal followed, the mount and the plain in the heart of the 4th region, Ninurta from the skies surveyed. With a squeezing in his heart, to Nergal a sign he gave, keep off! To him he signaled. Then the first terror weapon from the skies Ninurta let loose. The top of Mount Mashu with a flash it sliced off the mount's innards in an instant. It melted. Above the place of the celestial chariots, the second weapon he unleashed, with the brilliance of 7 suns, the plain's rocks into a gushing wound were made, the earth shook and crumbled, the heavens after the brilliance were darkened with burnt and crushed stones, was the plain of the chariots covered, of all the forests that the plain had surrounded. Only tree stems were left, standing. It is done. Ninurta from the skyship, his black divine bird word shouted, the control that Marduk and Nabu so coveted, of it they are forever deprived. Then to emulate Ninurta, Nergal desired to be Era, the annihilator, his heart. Him urged, following the king's highway to the verdant valley of the 5 cities he flew. In the verdant valley where Nabu the people was converting, Nergal as a caged bird to squash him planned over the 5 cities, one after the other, Era upon each from the skies a terror, weapons sent. The 5 cities of the valley he finished off, to desolation they were, overturned. With fire and brimstones were they upheaval, all that lived there to vapor was turned. By the awesome weapons were mountains toppled, where the sea waters were barred, the boat broke open, down into the valley the sea's waters poured, by the waters was the valley flooded, when upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. It is done. Era in his skyship shouted, in Nergal's heart there was no more vengeance. Surveying their evil handiwork, the 2 heroes by what they saw were puzzled. By a darkening of the skies where the brilliances followed, then a storm to blow began, swirling within a dark cloud, gloom from the skies an evil wind carried as the day wore on. The sun on the horizon with darkness it obliterated. At nighttime a dreaded brilliance skirted its edges, the moon at its rising it made disappear. When dawn the next morning came, from the west, from the upper sea, a storm wind began blowing, the dark brown cloud eastward it directed. Toward the settled lands did the cloud spread wherever it reached. Death to all that lives mercilessly it delivered. From the valley of no pity, by the brilliance's spawn, toward Shuma the death was carried. To Enlil and Enki, Ninurta and Nergal the alarm sounded, unstoppable the evil wind death to all delivers. The alarm Enlil and Enki to the gods of Shumer transmitted, escape, escape. To them all they cried out, let the people disperse, let the people hide. From their cities the gods did flee, like frightened birds from their nests. Escaping they were. The people of the lands by the evil storm's hand were clutched. Futile was the running, stealthy was the death. Like a ghost the fields and cities it attacked, the highest walls, the thickest walls, like floodwaters it passed. No door could shut it out, no boat could turn it back. Those who behind locked doors hid inside their houses, like flies were felled. Those who to the streets fled, in the streets were their corpses piled up. Cough and phlegm the chests filled, the mouths with spittle and foam filled. Up as the evil wind the people unseen engulfed, their mouths were drenched with blood. Slowly over the lands the evil wind blew, from west to east over plains and mountains it traveled. Everything that lived behind it was dead and dying, people and cattle, all alike perished. The waters were poisoned in the fields, all vegetation withered. From Eridu in the south to Sippar in the north did the evil wind the land. Overwhelmed Babili, where Marduk's supremacy declared, by the evil wind was spared. The 14th tablet, synopsis of the 14th tablet. Babili, Marduk's chosen center, survives the calamity. Enki sees it as an omen of Marduk's inevitable supremacy. Enlil ponders the past. Fate and destiny accepts Marduk's supremacy, retreats to faraway lands. The brothers bid a sentimental goodbye. Enki sees the past as a guide foretelling the future. He decides to commit all as a record for posterity. Colophon by the scribe in Dubsar. Babylonian depiction of a resplendent Marduk, Babili, where Marduk's supremacy declared by the evil wind was spared. All the land south of Babili, the evil wind devoured. The heart of the second region it also touched. When in the aftermath of the great calamity Enlil and Enki to survey the havoc met, Enki to Enlil the sparing of Babili as a divine omen considered. that Marduk to supremacy has been destined by the sparing of Babili is confirmed. So did Enki to Enlil say, the will of the creator of all it must have been. Enlil to Enki said, then to him the dream, vision, and prophecy of Galzu Enlil revealed, if that by you was known, why did you the use of the weapons of terror not prevent? Enki him asked, my brother. Enlil to Enki with a sorrowed voice said, enough seeing was the reason, whenever after your coming to earth the mission by an obstacle obstructed, was away the obstruction to circumvent we have found, of that the fashioning of the earthlings, the greatest solution, also the fountain of a myriad unwanted twists and turns was, when you have the celestial cycles fathomed and the constellations assigned, who in them the hands of destiny could foresee, who could between our chosen fates and our unbending destiny distinguish, who false omens proclaimed, who true prophecies could pronounce. Therefore, to keep to myself the words of Galzu, I decided, was he truly the creator of all's emissary? Was he my hallucination? Let whatever has to happen, happen. So to myself I said. To his brother's words Enki listened, his head up and down he nodded. The first region is desolate, the second region is in confusion, the third region is wounded, the place of the celestial chariots is no more. That is what has happened. Enki to Enlil said, if that was the will of the creator of all, that is what of our mission to earth remained. By the ambitions of Marduk was the seed sown, what the crop resulted is for him to reap. So did Enlil to his brother Enki say, then he the triumph of Marduk accepted. Let the rank of 50 by me for Ninurta intended to Marduk instead be given. Let Marduk over the desolation in the regions his supremacy declare. As for me and Ninurta, we will in his way no longer stand. To the lands beyond the oceans we will depart, what we had all had come. For the mission to obtain for Nibiru gold we will complete. So did Enlil to Enki say, dejection was in his words, would different matters have been, were the weapons of terror unused. Enki, his brother, challenged, should we have the words of Galzu to Nibiru not return heeded? Enlil retorted, should Earth mission been stopped when the Anunnaki mutinied? I what I did, you what you did, the past undone cannot become. Is not in that too a lesson? Enki asked them both. Is not what on earth happened, what on Nibiru had taken place mirrored? Is not in that tale of the past the outline of the future written? Will mankind, in our image created, our attainments and failures repeat? Enlil was silent as he stood up to leave, Enki to him his arm extended. Let us lock arms as brothers, as comrades who together challenges on an alien planet confronted. So did Enki to his brother say, and Enlil grasping his brother's arm hugged him as well. Shall we meet again, on Earth or on Nibiru? Enki asked. Was Galzu right that we die if we to Nibiru go? Enlil responded. Then he turned and departed. Alone was Enki left, only by the thoughts of his heart was he accompanied. How it all began and how it thus far ended, he sat and pondered. Was it all destined, or was it fate by this and that decision fashioned? If heaven and earth by cycles within cycles regulated, what had happened will again occur. Is the past the future? Will the earthlings the Anunnaki emulate? Will earth relive Nibiru? Will he, the first to arrive, the last to leave be? Besieged by thoughts, Enki a decision made, all the events and decisions, starting with Nibiru to this day on earth, to put in a record, a guide to future generations to become, let posterity, at a time by destiny designated, the record read, the past remember, the future as prophecy understand, let the future of the past the judge be. These are the words of Enki, firstborn of Anu of Nibiru. 14th tablet, the words of the Lord Enki, written from the mouth of the great Lord Enki, not one word missed, not one word added by the master scribe in Dubsar, a man of Eridu, son of Udbar. By the Lord Enki with long life I have been blessed. Glossary, Abiel, the biblical Abel, killed by his brother Ka in Abgal. Spacecraft pilot, first commander of the landing place Abzu. Enki's gold mining domain in southeast Africa Adab. Ninharsag's post-diluvial city in Sumer Adad. Akkadian name of Ishkur. Enlil's youngest son Adamu, the first successfully genetically engineered primitive worker, the Adam Adapa, son of Enki by an earthling female, first civilized man, the biblical Adam Agade, first post-war capital of Nibiru, unified capital of Sumer, and Akkad, the northern lands added to Sumer under Sargon I Akkadian. The mother tongue of all Semitic languages is Alaugar. Spacecraft pilot, second commander of Eridu Alalu, the deposed king of Nibiru who escaped to Earth and discovered. Gold, died on Mars. His image was carved on a rock that was his tomb. Alam, son of Anshargal by concubine Amun, Egyptian name for the exiled god Ra'an. First unity king on Nibiru. Name of the planet we call Uranus, Anak, the metal Tin Anib, royal title of Ib, a successor on Nibiru's throne Anki, firstborn son of an On Nibiru Anu, sacred city in Egypt, the biblical On, Heliopolis in Greek Anshar, the fifth ruler on Nibiru of the unified dynasty, the planet we call Saturn Anshargal, the fourth ruler on Nibiru of the unified dynasty, Antu, spouse of An, spouse of Anu, early name of the planet we call Neptune Anu, Nibiru's ruler. When the Anunnaki came to Earth, also the planet called Uranus Anunitu, endearment name for the goddess Inanna Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came from Nibiru to Earth, Anzu, spacecraft pilot, first commander of the way station on Mars Apsu, primordial progenitor of the solar system, the sun Arata, a domain granted to Inanna, part of the third region Arbakad, the biblical Arpachshad, one of Shem's sons Arata, the land and mountains of Ararat Asar, the Egyptian god called Osiris Asta, the Egyptian goddess called Isis, sister, wife of Asar Awan, sister wife of Ka in the biblical Cain Aya, spouse of Utu, the god called Shamash in Akkadian Azura, spouse of Sati, mother of Enshi, the biblical Enosh Bab Ili, gateway of the gods, Babylon, Marduk city in Mesopotamia, Bad Tabira, Ninurta city of smelting and refining gold, Banda, heroic ruler of Uruk, biblical Erich, father of Gilgamesh, Baraka, spouse of Irid, the biblical Jared Batanash, spouse of Lumak, biblical Lamech, mother of the hero of the Deluge Bow, spouse of Ninuta, Ahila Beacon Peaks, the two great pyramids of Giza, afterward Mount Mashu in, the Sinai Ben, conical upper part of Ra celestial boat, black-headed people, the Sumerian people, black land, the African domain of the god Dumuzi, black skybird, the aerial vehicle of Ninuta, boat of heaven, aerial vehicle of various gods and goddesses, bond, heaven, earth, the complex instruments and mission control center branch of life essence, DNA holding chromosome bull of heaven, Enlil's guardian of the landing place, symbol of his, constellation Buranu, the river Euphrates, cedar forest, location of the landing place in present-day Lebanon, Cedar Mountains, location of Enlil's abode in the cedar forest, celestial bark, Egyptian term for a god spacecraft celestial battle, the primordial collision between Nibiru and Tiamat celestial chariots, interplanetary spacecraft celestial portions, the 72-year period for 1 degree zodiacal shift due to precession celestial stations, the 12 houses of the zodiacal constellations, celestial time, time measured by the precessional shifts of zodiacal constellations, chariots place, spaceport circuit, orbit of a planet around the sun, civilized man, Homo sapiens sapiens, of which Adapa was the first one count of Earth years, the count of years since Anu's visit to Earth, the Nippur calendar begun in 30,760 BC, creation chamber, genetic engineering and domestication facility on the Cedar Mountains, creator of all, the universal cosmic god Damkina, spouse of Enki, renamed Ninki, daughter of Alalu, dark-hued land, Africa Dauru, spouse of the Nibiruan King Duuru Dawn and Dusk, earthling females impregnated by Enki, mothers of Adapa. Antiti, deluge, the great flood destiny, predetermined course of events of orbit that is unchangeable duat, Egyptian name for the restricted zone of the spaceport in the Sinai Dudu, endearment name for the god Adad Ishkur, Enlil's youngest son, Inanna's uncle Dumuzi, Enki's youngest son, in charge of shepherding in his Egyptian. Domain Dona, spouse of Malalu, mother of Irid, the biblical Mahalalel, and Jared Dutur, concubine of Enki, Dumuzi's mother Duru, seventh ruler on Nibiru Ea, whose home is water, the prototype Aquarius, firstborn son of Anu, half-brother of Enlil, leader of the first group of Anunnaki to arrive on earth, the fashioner of mankind and its savior from the deluge, given the epithets Nudamud, the fashioner, Ta, the developer in Egypt, Enki, Lord Earth, father Mardukiana, the seven-stage temple of Anu in Uruk, given by him as a present. To Inanna East Wind, a satellite moon of Nibiru, a location of the Anunnaki's first settlements, the biblical Eden, in southern Mesopotamia, later the area of Shumer Edini, spouse of Enkime, mother of Metushel, the biblical Enoch, and Methuselah, Ednat, spouse of Metushel, mother of Lumak, the biblical Lamech, Kur, the tall structure in the pre-diluvial mission control center, the great Pyramid of Giza, after the deluge emitter, instrument used together with pulsar to revive Inanna Emush's snake-infested desert where Dumuzi sought to hide, Emzara, spouse of Zusudra, the biblical Noah, and mother of his three sons, Enbululu, a lieutenant of Ea with the first landing party in Dubzar, the scribe to whom Enki dictated his memoir, Engur, a lieutenant of Ea with the first landing party Enki, Ea's epithet title after the division of duties and powers between him, and his half-brother and rival Enlil, father of Marduk by his spouse Damkina, failed to have a son by his half-sister Ninmah, but fathered 5 other sons by concubines, and also children by earthling females Enkidu, artificially created companion of Gilgamesh Enkimdu, a lieutenant of Ea with the first landing party Enkime, taken heavenward and granted much knowledge, the biblical Enoch, father of Sarpanid, Marduk's spouse Ninu, the temple abode of Ninurta, in the sacred precinct of Lagash Enlil, son of Anu, and his sister spouse Antu, and thus the foremost son, entitled to the succession to Nibiru's throne, ahead of the firstborn Ea, military commander and administrator, sent to Earth to organize wide-scale gold obtainment operations, father of Ninurta by his half-sister Ninmah, and of Nana and Ishkur by his spouse Ninlil, opposed the fashioning of the earthlings, sought mankind's demise by the deluge, authorized the use of nuclear weapons against Marduk Inmekar, heroic ruler of Unug-Ki Uruk, grandfather of Gilgamesh Onugi, commander of the Anunnaki assigned to the gold mines in the Abzu-Enshar, 6th dynastic ruler on Nibiru, named the planets embraced by Nibiru's orbit Enshi, the biblical Enosh, the first to be taught rites and worship in Nursag, a lieutenant of Ea with the first landing party in Uru, third son of An and Antu and father of Nibiru's ruler Anu-Ereshkigal, granddaughter of Enlil, mistress of the lower world, southern Africa, spouse of Nergal, sister of Inanna Eridu, the first settlement on earth, established by Ea, his everlasting center, and abode in Shumer era, epithet of Nergal after the nuclear holocaust, meaning the annihilator Esagil, temple of Marduk in Babylon, essence of life, the genetically encoded DNA. Etana, a king of Uruk who was carried heavenward but was too afraid to continue, evil serpent, derogatory epithet for Marduk by his enemies, evil wind, the death-bearing nuclear cloud drifting eastward toward Shumer fate, a course of events that is subject to free choice and is alterable father of all beginning, the universal creator of all, the cosmic God firmament, the asteroid belt, the remnant of the broken up half of Tiamat first region, the first region of civilization granted to mankind, Shumer foremost son, the son born to a ruler by a half-sister and thus the legal heir fourth region, the Sinai Peninsula, location of the post-diluvial spaceport Gaga, the moon of Anshar Saturn, that after Nibiru's passage became the planet Pluto Gaida, youngest son of Enkiim, Enoch in the Bible Galzu, a mysterious divine emissary who conveyed the messages in dreams and visions gateway to heaven, the purpose of the launch tower built by Marduk-en. Babylon Geshtinana, Dumuzi's sister who betrayed him, Jibul, a son of Enki, in charge of metallurgy, maker of magical artifacts, Jigunu, in Nana's house of nighttime pleasure, Gilgamesh, king in Uruk, being a son of a goddess, went in search of. Immortality Girsu, sacred precinct of Ninurta in Lagash, great below, the continent of Antarctica, great calamity, the devastation in the aftermath of the nuclear holocaust in 2024 BC, Great Deep, the Antarctic Ocean, Great Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, also called the Upper Sea, Gugstone, beam-emitting crystal, transferred from the Great Pyramid to Mount Mashu Guru, a lieutenant of Ea at the first landing, Ham, second son of the hero of the deluge, brother of Shem and Japhet, hammered bracelet, the asteroid belt, also called the firmament, Hapi, the ancient Egyptian name for the Nile River, Haran, city in northwestern Mesopotamia, now in Turkey, that served as a twin city of Ur, sojourn place of Abraham, staging place of Marduk for usurpation of supremacy on earth, heavenly bright object, a secret divine device enshrining the site of kingship Hemta, Egyptian name for ancient Egypt Horon, the Egyptian god now called Horus, house of fashioning, genetic laboratory in the cedar forest for crops and livestock house of healing, the medical biological facilities of Ninmah in Shurabak house of life, the biogenetic facilities of Enki in the Abzuhurum, a mountain where the hero Banda died and came back to life, IB, third dynastic king Onibiru, given the royal title An-Ib Ebru, grandson of Arbakad, the biblical Eber, forebear of Abraham, Ibrum, scion of a priestly royal family from Nippur and Ur, the biblical Abraham Ijiji, the 300 Anunnaki assigned to shuttlecraft and the way, stationed on Mars, abducted female earthlings as wives, frequent rebels Alabrat, a vizier and emissary of Anu, fetched a dapper for the journey to Nibiru, imperishable star, the Egyptian name for the planet from which Ra had come to earth. Inanna, daughter of Nannar and Ningal, twin sister of Utu, was betrothed to Dumuzi, ferocious in war, lusty in love-making, mistress of Uruk and of the third region known as Ishtar in Akkadian, associated with the planet we call Venus Imbu, a fruit brought from Nibiru to earth, source of the Anunnaki's elixir Irid, the biblical Jared, father of Enkimi, the biblical Enoch Ishkur, youngest son of Enlil by his spouse Ninlil, the Akkadian god Adad Ishtar, the Akkadian name for the goddess Inanna Ishum, epithet given to Ninurta after the nuclear holocaust, meaning the scorcher Isimud, housemaster and vizier of Enki Ka'in, the biblical Cain, who killed his brother Abel and was banished Kalkal, gatekeeper of Enlil's residence in the Abzuki, firm ground, the planet Earth Ki Engi, Shumer, land of lofty watchers civilization, the first region of Kingu, Tiamat's principal satellite, Earth's moon after the celestial battle Kishar, spouse of Nibiru's fifth ruler, the planet we call Jupiter Kishargal, spouse of Nibiru's fourth ruler, Kishi, the first city of men in Shumer where kingship began, Kula, a lieutenant of Ea during the first landing, Kunin, The biblical Kenan, son of Enshi and Noam Larsa, one of the Anunnaki's pre-diluvial cities, re-established after the Deluge Lagash, built the same time as Larsa, both to serve as beacon cities. After, the deluge re-established as Ninurta's principal city Lahama, spouse of Lama Lahamu, the planet we call Venus Lama, the 8th dynastic king on Nibiru Lamu, the planet we call Mars, land beyond the seas, the Americas settled by Ka and his descendants, overseen by Ninurta land of the Two Narrows, the lands along the Nile River landing place, the platform for skyships and rocket ships in the Cedar. Mountains law of the seed, the rule giving succession precedence to a son by a half. Sister life seed, DNA extracted from semen Lower Abzu, the southern tip of Africa, domain of Nergal and Ereshkigal Lower Sea, the body of water now called the Persian Gulf Lower World, the southern hemisphere, including southern Africa and Antarctica Lugal, literally great man, epithet for a chosen king Lulu, the genetically engineered hybrid, the primitive worker Luma, son of Metushal and Ednat, the biblical Lamech Megan, ancient Egypt Malalu, son of Kunin and Mualit, the biblical Mahalalel Marduk, firstborn son and legal heir of Enki and Damkina, worshipped as Ra. In Egypt, jealous of his brothers, unsatisfied with Egypt alone as his domain, claimed and after exiles and wars attained supremacy on earth from his city Babylon Metushal, son of Enkimi and Adini, the biblical Methuselah Me, tiny objects encoded with formulas for all aspects of science and civilization Meluha, ancient Nubia Mena, the king whose reign began the first dynasty of Egyptian pharaohs Menenefer, Egypt's first capital, Memphis Mission Control Center, in Nibruki Nippur before the deluge on Mount Moriah, after the deluge Mount Mashu, the instrument-equipped mount at the post-diluvial Sinai, spaceport Mount of Salvation, the peaks of Ararat, where the Ark rested after the deluge Mount of Showing the Way, Mount Moriah, site of post-diluvial mission, control center Mualit, spouse of Kunin, mother of Malalu Musardu, one of 7 birth mothers of the first Earthlings Mushdamu, a lieutenant of EA at the first landing Nabu, son of Marduk and Sarpanit, organized human followers of Marduk Namtar, Fate, vizier of Ereshkigal in her lower world domain Nana, son of Enlil and Ninli, the first Anunnaki leader to be born on Earth, patron god of Urim-Ur and Haran, associated with the moon, known as Sin in Akkadian, father of Utu, and Inanna Naram Sin, grandson of Sargon, and a successor of his as king of Shumer. And Akkad navel of the earth, epithet for the location of Mission Control Center Nebat, sister wife of the Egyptian god Satu, the one we call Nefertiti's Nergal, a son of Enki, ruler of the lower Abzu with his spouse Ereshkigal, unleashed the nuclear weapons together with Ninurta Neteru, Egyptian word for gods meaning guardian watchers Nibiru, home planet of the Anunnaki. Its orbital period, Ashar, equals 3,600. Earth years became the 12th member of the solar system after the celestial battle Nibruki, the original mission control center, Enlil City in Shumer called. Nippur in Akkadian Nimug, one of 7 birth mothers of the first Earthlings Nimul, mother of Ya Enki by Anu, not being an official spouse and half. Sister, her son, though firstborn, lost the succession to Enlil, whose mother was Antu Ninaga, a son of Enki, appointed by him to navigate the boat of the hero of the deluge. Ninbar, one of 7 birth mothers of the first Earthlings Ningal, spouse of Nanar Sin, mother of Inanna, and Utu Ningirsig, a lieutenant of Ea at the first landing Ningishida, son of Enki, master of genetics and other sciences called. Tehuti Thoth in ancient Egypt went with followers to the Americas after he was deposed by his brother Marduk Ningwana, one of 7 birth mothers of the first earthling, Ninharsag, epithet of Ninma, after she was granted an abode in the Sinai. Peninsula Ninkashi, female Anunnaki in charge of beer-making Ninki, title of Damkina, Ea's spouse, when he was entitled Enki, Lord of Earth Ninib, spouse of Ibi, the 3rd dynastic king on Nibiru Ninima, one of 7 birth mothers of the first earthlings Ninlil, espoused by Enlil after she forgave his date rape, mother of Nanar, and Ishkur Ninmada, one of 7 birth mothers of the first earthlings Ninma, half-sister of Enki and Enlil, mother of Ninurta by Enlil chief. Medical officer of the Anunnaki, helped Enki to genetically engineer the primitive worker, peacemaker among the rival and warring Anunnaki clans, renamed Ninharsag Ninmug, one of 7 birth mothers of the first earthlings Ninshubur, chambermaid of Inanna Ninsen, the Anunnaki mother of Gilgamesh Ninurta, Enlil's foremost son, mothered by Enlil's half-sister Ninma, and his legal successor battled with Anzu, who seized the tablets of destinies, and with Marduk found the alternative sources for gold and established alternative space facilities in the Americas, patron god of Lagash Nippur, Akkadian name of Nibru-Ki, where the calendar of Earth years was, begun in 3760 BC, birthplace of Ebru, Abraham, Nisaba, goddess of writing and measuring Nome, sister wife of Enshi, mother of Kunin, North Crest, abode of Enlil in the Cedar Mountains North Wind, one of Nibiru's satellite moons, Nudimud, an epithet for Ea meaning he who fashions things, the planet. Neptune Nungal, pilot of spacecraft Nusku, Enlil's vizier and emissary olden times, the period that began with the first landing and ended with the deluge place of celestial chariots, spaceport of the Anunnaki plant of being young again, the secret rejuvenation plant found by Gilgamesh, plant of life, used by Enki's robotic emissaries to revive Inanna primitive worker, the first genetically engineered earthling primordial begetter, Apsu, the sun, in the creation cosmogony prior times, the period of events on Nibiru before the missions to Earth Ta, Enki's name in Egypt, meaning the developer. It commemorates his deeds in raising the land from under the flood's waters pulsar, instrument used together with the emitter to revive the dead Ra, the Egyptian name for Marduk, meaning the bright one Sarpanit, an earthling, the spouse of Marduk, mother of Nabusati, 3rd son of Adapa and Titi, the biblical Seth Satu, son of Marduk and Sarpanit, the Egyptian god known as Seth Scorcher, epithet for Ninurta in his role in the use of nuclear weapons, 2nd region, Egypt and Nubia, when they were granted civilization seed of life, the genetic material encoding all life forms, DNA Shamash, Akkadian name for Utu. Shamgaz, a leader of the Ijiji and instigator of the abduction of Earthling. Females, Shar, one orbital period of Nibiru around the sun, equal to 3,600 Earth years. Sharukin, the first king of unified Shumer and Akkad, the one we call Sargon Ishem, the eldest son of the hero of the deluge. Shumer, land of the Watchers, the first region of post-diluvial civilization. Sumer, Shurubak, healing center of Ninmah from before the deluge and re-established thereafter. Sin, the Akkadian name for Nanar. Sippar, the spaceport city in pre-diluvial times commanded by Utu, his cult, center after the deluge. Skybirds, aircraft of the Anunnaki for flying in Earth's skies. Snow-hued place, Antarctica. South Wind, a satellite moon of Nibiru. Stormbird, Ninurta's aerial battlecraft. Sud, a nurse, also the epithet name for Ninlil before she became Enlil's spouse. Susiana, one of 7 birth mothers of the first earthlings. Tablets of destinies, devices used in Mission Control Center to track and control orbits and trajectories. Later on, a record of unalterable decisions. Tehuti, Egyptian name for Ningishida as Thoth, the god of science and knowledge. 3rd region, domain allotted to Inanna, the Indus Valley civilization. Tiamat, primordial planet that broke up in the celestial battle, giving rise to the asteroid belt and to the earth. Tiamat, wife of Adamu, first earthling female able to procreate. Tilmun, land of the missiles, the 4th region in the Sinai Peninsula. Tirhu, oracle priest in Nippur. In Haran, the biblical Terah, father of Abraham. Titi, spouse of the first civilized man. Adapa, mother of Cain and Abba Udbor, father of the scribe in Dupsa Ulmash. A lieutenant of Ea at the first landing Anunnaki, city built for Anu's visit, granted by him to Inanna, later called. Uruk, the biblical Ereksh, throne city of Gilgamesh and other demigods, upper plain area in northern Mesopotamia, were the descendants of. Arpakad dwelt upper sea, the Mediterranean Sea Akkadian name for Urim. The rulers of Shumer and Akkad, when the nuclear calamity happened, are known as kings of the 3rd dynasty of Ur, the biblical Ur of the Chaldees, from which Abraham migrated to Haran, Urim, Nanar city in Shumer, and the land's capital 3 times, including, at the time of the Great Calamity, a thriving center of culture, industry, and international trade. Or Namu, first king of the 3rd dynasty of Uruk, Akkadian name for Unuki, the biblical Erish Utu, Shamash in Akkadian. Twin brother of Inanna, commander of the spaceport of Sippar in pre-diluvial times, and of the one in the Sinai after the deluge, giver of laws from his cult center in Sippar after the deluge, godfather of Gilgamesh water of life, used to revive Inanna and bring her back from the dead water of youth, promised by Ra to his followers in an afterlife way of Anu, the central band of the celestial sphere containing the zodiacal constellations on Earth, the central band between the northern way of Enlil and the southern way of Enki, the celestial sphere below the 30th parallel south way of Enlil, the celestial sphere above the 30th parallel north, weapons of terror, nuclear weapons, used at first on Nibiru and then, finally on Earth-West Wind, a satellite moon of Nibiru, one of 7, Whirlwind, a satellite moon of Nibiru, one of 7 whirlwinds, helicopter-like aerial vehicles of the Anunnaki Whiteland, Antarctica winged serpent, epithet of Ningishida in the Americas Zamush, land of precious stones, part of Inanna's 3rd region Zusudra, hero of the deluge, a son of Enki by an earthling, the biblical. Noah Zumu, astronomer priest in Uruk during Anu's visit.